Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and this is Taking Care of Business. Joining me today is Arlene Dickinson, who is a well-known Canadian entrepreneur and a dragon on Dragon's Den on CBC TV. Thanks for joining us, Arlene.
Mario, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. You're always such a joy, and I love speaking to you about business. So thanks for having me on.
Well, let's talk business here today. And I was interested in a post you had on LinkedIn recently where you talked about change and the importance of entrepreneurs being willing to change. How and why is that so important today?
If you're not constantly thinking about the next iteration of your business, then I think you become stagnant, and I think you run the deep risk of becoming irrelevant. And so, it's incredibly important, especially as you think about today's changing environment. I mean, consumers' patterns are changing. People are wanting to work differently than they ever have before. And so being able to pivot or change or evolve or reinvent yourself is really a constant state. So I would say change is foundational to creating a business that's going to last into the future.
So when you look at it, though, it's not a difficult thing to do, right? People changing old habits and routines is pretty tough for anybody.
It is. I mean, when they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, I actually think that's actually very telling. I mean, if you're so used to the way you do things that you can't even imagine learning, then you will not learn. So I think it's about creativity, about challenging yourself to be playful in your thinking. And by that, I mean, like always being creative around what's going on around you. And it's a mindset. It's no different than when you see one person who's, 60 years old and another. There's one person looks old and the other one doesn't. Well, probably a lot of it's mindset. Same is true for business.
Yeah, that's true. I guess, the funny thing is that, during my career, I've seen a lot of stuff, and I always think that this, I always wonder why certain businesses and industries and companies continue to do things and do them all the time, and they're not successful, right? And but they continue to do it that way because, hey, this is how we've done it all the time, right? Do you come across? Do you see a lot of that out there? And
those words are those words are fatal to a business. Why do we do it this way? Well, because it's always been done that way. I mean, that is just the worst reason in the world to do anything, right? You've got to think about, well, just simply because it was that way before doesn't mean that that's the way we need to do it in the future. And the management teams, Mario, that actually challenge themselves on that front, that actually ask themselves, well, why is it being done that way still today? Maybe there is a different way. Those are the teams that innovate. Those are the teams that learn. Those are the teams that are ready to change because they know they need to. And yeah, it takes courage. And, human nature is, like you said, people don't like to change, but if you're not changing today, you're in trouble.
And what's that old definition of insanity, of doing something over and over again and expecting different results?
Yeah.
So true. Let's talk a little bit about the pandemic. And the pandemic obviously highlighted a lot of this, a need for change, a need to pivot, and need to adapt during these times. What do you think the lasting impact, whenever this is all said and done, what do you think the lasting impact is going to be on entrepreneurship from the pandemic?
I probably a couple things I would say come to mind when you ask that question. I think grit and determination are just defining characteristics of entrepreneurs, and many entrepreneurs through this pandemic found a way to change, to reinvent themselves, to become relevant in times that were very difficult and continually morphing. So I'd say that, believing in your grit and determination, and also having context about what's going on in the marketplace. So entrepreneurs are really good at kind of identifying gaps in the marketplace. And there were a lot of gaps that were identified in the marketplace, from healthcare and from understanding food chain and understanding, food safety and our food security, from thinking about what's going on with our governments. I mean, there was a lot going on. And so I think the lasting thing that happened was an intense focus on what is going on with people. Like, we kind of had lost that thread. We were so busy building businesses that we lost the why, which was trying to find ways to make our society better, trying to find ways that were going to help us survive in a way that was meaningful. And so it brought us together closer in many respects. It taught us the importance of strength and grit and determination. It taught us about societal impact. And it taught us about, as entrepreneurs, that there are always opportunities. And those opportunities often come from challenging conditions or from places that you don't, the average person who's not entrepreneurial might not see, but when somebody does, they go, oh my God, that's such a great idea. So, I think that's what happens.
So in these challenging times that we've had for 2 years, and in Alberta, actually even a little bit more, because of the oil patch struggles, do you think the entrepreneurial spirit has been dampened because of this, or has it been strengthened and more people looking for entrepreneurial opportunities?
I think it's been dampened in some sectors, and I think it's been grown in others. The whole, like the acceleration of clean tech that's happening in Alberta, we're going to see such innovation that was already being worked on but wasn't really being pushed to the forefront. We're going to see more of that. We're going to see more and more of people thinking about diversifying our economy and becoming able to do things that aren't just necessarily energy driven. So I would say that it's probably emboldened some entrepreneurs and created a new breed of entrepreneurs, people that are going to make it happen for Alberta versus people who are kind of sitting back for that boom bust cycle that we were going through all the time.
And so what is it going to take for these new entrepreneurs that come onto the scene now? What is it going to take for them to be successful?
They're going to need capital. So they're going to need the support of financial institutions, investors, private equity, venture capitalists, angel investors. They're going to need support, consumer buy-in, people looking to seek out and help entrepreneurs that are just starting out. They're going to need courage. They're going to need courage, and they're going to need. I'd say they're going to need for policymakers to take hurdles out of their way and not put hurdles in their way. So policy to change.
Yeah. One last thing I wanted to ask you, and it's just a little bit about some of the news we've been seeing here, specifically in Calgary and Alberta recently, with a lot of tech announcements, companies coming here. Do you feel a little bit more optimistic about where we're headed as a province and as a city, knowing that a lot of these businesses are not the traditional businesses that we've been used to in this city, in this province?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an optimist by trade. So I've always been a guy. I mean, I built my business, my first business in Calgary. I created my fund, my accelerator. Everything I've done has been headquartered in Alberta. A great idea doesn't care what the provincial boundaries are. This is a global world we live in. There's no boundaries to what is possible as a business. You can do anything. So am I optimistic? I think if the right policies are in place, government policies are in place, I think if the right capital gets free to explore other sectors and encourage that development, then yes, I'm incredibly optimistic. We live in such an amazing province. This city, Calgary, is just so, I love it. I love it so much. And I love it because I know I couldn't have done what I've done anywhere else, I don't believe. And here for me, 35 years ago when I started, we're close to the mountains. We've got great people. We've got great pathways. We've got great environment. Now we just need to, continue to push business forward.
Yeah, super. Well, thanks very much, Arlene, for joining us today.
Mario, it's always a pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. That's Arlene Dickinson. Arlene Dickinson, a well-known Canadian entrepreneur and a dragon on Dragon's Den on CBC TV. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and this has been Taking Care of Business. Thanks for joining us.